We're going to finish up writing this login with password function, and then I'm going to show you something kind of cool having to do with Meteor, and then we're going to fix a glitch that I haven't fixed yet intentionally because I want to get to it, just because you're going to run into it in the future and you should know how to get yourself out of it. All right, so down here, right after this console log, which should have a semicolon after it, I just want to write a little to-do message. We're going to want to come back to this later and make it so that, when this person successfully signs in, so there's no error, we want to send them off to the next screen. So just make a little note that we're going to have to come back to that later. Down here, I'm going to console.log meteor.user_id, and then this is a function like this. And what this is going to do is it's going to return back the unique ID tied to this particular user that's now signed in. In Meteor and MongoDB, and really anytime you're developing like Node.js or really any database at all, every single document that you put inside your database, so any type of information, is going to have a unique ID attached to it. And that ID is useful because it helps you go to your database and retrieve certain data that you need, and in the case of like a Meteor user, it helps you identify which user you're trying to find. Maybe that user has like a profile or something that you're going to go into the database and try and pull out. We want to know what that Meteor user ID is. Now the cool thing is Meteor has this user ID function attached to it that we could just anytime we want to call it, it'll just give us back that string of whatever that ID is. Now, you may notice we got meteor.login with password, meteor.userid. What other kinds of things could we do with Meteor? That's a pretty good question. We could just go to the documentation on Meteor's website, which is pretty good, and there's a whole bunch of stuff on there that we can look at that would show us, what you could do. But real quick, what I want to do is show you just what's on this Meteor object. Like, what do we have sitting on there? So at the top of the sign-in function, above this meteor.login with password, console log Meteor, just Meteor, and then right below it, type in return, because we don't want the rest of the function to run yet. We just want this the console log for the Meteor to run. Save that up, get your Expo out, and we're going to look at what happens when I hit this button. So I'm going to hit sign in, sign up. Nothing's going to happen except it's going to put in a log for Meteor right here. Notice all of this stuff that I have on this Meteor object. So we just logged the Meteor object right here, and it's got a bunch of stuff. It's got our accounts, which remember we installed into the packages earlier. We just added basically this accounts object that has a bunch of helpful functions on here, like change password, create user, forgot password, on login. So like really helpful stuff. And then down here we could even see what we're using, which is like user ID. Get the user, like there's a user object that we can get that has a bunch of stuff on there. Subscribe, which we'll talk about later. Where is it? The one that we're using right now is login with password. There it is. So the Meteor object has like a bunch of stuff on here. And I encourage you sometime to just check it out, either in the documentation or just maybe try some of these out by looking at the Meteor object that you just console logged like this, just to give you a little background about what you're getting with Meteor. All right, so back in our Sublime here, I'm going to put my app over here. We're going to run into a problem real quick, and I'm excited about it. Go ahead and delete these 2 lines and save this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the email and password I'm going to use. So I'm going to use veerscanlin@gmail.com, which is my email. And my password will be password. And I'll hit sign in, sign up right now. Now watch what happens. Uh-oh, red screen, big error somewhere. So what this is saying, null is not an object. You're trying to evaluate something about a DDP method. Basically what this is saying, especially with this DDP method, is it's saying there's no connection to the server right now. So we got the server running on our local host, right? We got it running on our on our terminal. It says app running at localhost 3000. That means the server's up and running, but it's not communicating to the app yet. What we have to do is we have to add in our server URL so that it can connect to it. So I'm going to go up to the top here, and you usually want this to be on your top level component. You're just going to say const, and in caps we'll say server underscore URL. And inside of here I'm going to add some quotes, and I'm going to say ws ://localhost :3000, looking familiar yet, /WebSocket. And what this is going to do is it's going to access Meteor's WebSocket that they have built into wherever you're serving your app, and you're going to be able to use this to get any data you want from the server while not necessarily being connected to just like a Meteor website. So you have some other application, in this case React Native, that you want to connect up. This is how you would do it. Now we're not done yet. We have to add on this other function. This is so far, like some of the functions we've built, like the sign-in function inside of React. This is something we've built. Now I'm going to show you a function that's actually built into a React component. So this is what's known as a lifecycle component, and it helps you do certain things either like before or after or during some event in the React lifecycle. So like whenever this app component is run. And the component we're going to, or the function we're going to use is something called component will mount. And then what this is saying is, I always had like trouble with this. Like people never, whenever I did like a React tutorial when I was first learning it a while back, I remember people never really explain these very well. You can even say like, see, it says life cycle inside of my Sublime. This is just from a package that helps me like determine some of these things. It's a life cycle method. So just component will mount is saying, look, we know that the component will mount shortly. We're talking about milliseconds here. We know that the component's about to mount. Like we want to do something before we start seeing stuff on screen happen. So, in the case of Meteor, we want to connect with the Meteor database before any of this stuff loads up, so that way when it's time for us to hit sign in, this is already ready for us. So we can say Meteor connect and then just give it that server URL that we just put up there. And that's all we have to do. Now I'm going to save this, and it's going to refresh here, and I'll open up my Expo XDE and drag this over. I'm going to type in the same veerscanlan@gmail.com and then my password, which is password, and hit sign in, sign up, and watch what happens. Batch is not a function. This is not an error that I planned for, so I will be covering this in the next video.